afternoon, and welcome to our next episode of the New Normal in Government Contracting. I'm Courtney Fairchild, President and CEO of Global Services. And we are here today with Lisa Shea Mundt. We are so lucky to have her. Lisa is the co-owner and founder of the Pulse of GovCon. So the Pulse is a GovCon federal market intelligence and research consultancy. And they were founded to break down barriers across the government contracting ecosystem, specifically to bridge gaps in federal procurement through their writing, training, consulting, and customized membership platform. That's my way of saying that they entered this space to turn government contracting on its head and have been doing a great job as disruptors. Lisa, I'm so glad that you're here with us today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Courtney. Happy to be here.
So we'll get right into it. I know we don't have a ton of time, and you are very, very busy, which we're going to talk about. But tell me a little bit. So the new normal in government contracting is, sort of the premise around the pandemic. And so I'll start with, what are some of your thoughts on the sweeping changes that have hit the GovCon industry in particular over the last year and a half?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's no secret that remote work has taken over. That's the new normal in a lot of ways. And it's funny because for my business partner, Amber Hart, and I, that was our previous normal too. So we had worked remote for about 3 years prior to the coronavirus. So it was pretty par for the course for us. What has changed is a shift in expectations. So although we worked from a purely virtual environment previously, people's expectations about what that looks like has changed. Turning the camera on, that was a new normal that we had to get used to. We were not ready for that because everything before had just been conference calls or just regular cell phone calls, or we would use these sort of web conferencing services to just maintain and screen share, but not to show our faces. So that expectation and our kind of reputation as being lurkers for the first year of the pandemic, because we never turned our camera on, was certainly, we could not understand why people needed to see the whites of our eyes.
I tried very hard to avoid turning on my camera for a long time. I didn't want to do these live. I mean, I just was like, why do we have to do this via camera? And I have now embraced it, but I really hated it.
Especially, so I actually had a baby in May of 2020. And so that was a weird time. And so for a couple of months there, maybe 6 months, I could use the excuse of, I'm covered in baby spit up. You don't want to see me right now. Nobody likes a postpartum woman. And that was great. And then that excuse just fell by the wayside. So there's been that change. There's been a change in the temptation to pack in, I think, more meetings into a day. You don't have the travel time. So whereas my calendar used to have buffer, now it certainly does none at all. And, I think that some of the things that have changed too is people's perception of what virtual work is and what it looks like, and whether or not it was a necessary evil or if it's the way of the future. And it's funny, someone the other day told me that they thought professional friendships could not be forged virtually, which is a huge load of BS in my opinion, because Courtney, you and I feel like we're professional friends, and I don't know if we've ever met. Have we ever met in person?
If we did, I think it was at OSDBU.
Right. So
at the procurement conference. Yeah. But yes, I mean, it is much more of this and always has been. I know it was an interesting time to have a baby, good, bad. I mean, tell me a little bit personally, what was that like for you just in the middle of what we're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was my first kid. And so that brought its own challenges. And the fact that we have the Pulse, but my family jokes that I don't have a real job because I work for myself. So in terms of maternity leave or anything like that, that didn't exist. So, but I worked from home and I got to raise the baby and be with her every single day and do my job, which was wonderful. It got to be my husband and I, we were completely quarantined off from anybody coming anywhere near us for the first 2 months of her life. Like nobody else touched her, no grandparents, or anybody. because we didn't know what was going on. And so it brought its own challenges, but it was also a blessing in disguise. I got to take conference calls and work, and I'd be bouncing her at my feet
Sure.
in the morning. So
yeah, that's amazing. And as I say, a blessing in disguise. I talked a lot throughout our new normal about embracing some of the positives, right? The pandemic hasn't been all negative. And I think there have been some really good lessons that we've all learned. As you say, my habit is now to pack in way too many meetings, right? I'm having to work from 5 to 10 or 11 at night because during the day I'm meeting from 9 to 5, and there's no time to get anything done. So I need to train myself better. But there have been a lot more productivity within our company and things that we've learned. How have you and Amber tackled business any differently than you did before? And how do you keep, I know you've got some staff and interns, how do you keep morale high during a time where people are pretty stressed out?
yeah, so again, it was pretty normal for us. Always been a proponent of the work from home culture. I even have a throw pillow that says "Let's stay home," which was pretty gauche during a pandemic and a quarantine. You look at that and you go, "Ooh, let's stay home." Yeah, we don't really have a choice right now. But in terms of keeping up morale, have always been really big on social media. I mentioned before that person said they didn't think professional friendships could be forged virtually. And I feel like one of the good things about this was being able to connect with people on LinkedIn or Twitter and virtual events and get to talk to them in that capacity, and webinars and trainings online, things that people might not have been able to attend previously because of things like travel time, an ability to get out during the day, or having to be home at night. So by being able to offer those sort of virtual components to our business and just our personalities, that definitely kept up morale for us because we got to connect with so many more people than we would have in a physical environment.
We recently shared your blog post on fourth quarter spending this particular year. Why don't you tell us just a little bit about the trends that you saw as you were doing that research, and then what you think it might predict for next year as well?
Yeah, sure thing. So Amber and I started putting together this fourth quarter spending article a couple of years ago, and we did it for one very intensive and sole purpose, and that was to counteract some of the rhetoric that we were seeing in industry publications surrounding Q4. Every fourth quarter, there are so many headlines about the fourth quarter spending spree and all these sort of like get rich quick schemes that come out seemingly to say, you're going to make money and you're going to make money. It's the fourth quarter, baby. Let's go. And so we decided to do our own research because we don't like to take anything at face value. So what we found is that for this one in particular, last fiscal year, the fourth quarter spending accounted for 28% of the total FY20 obligations. 28%. It's not huge.
It's not that different from if we're talking about quarters, it isn't 50%.
Exactly. But the way that people talk about it, you would think it is. And so based on our research throughout the years, we've found that federal agencies spend around 69% of their discretionary fund before the start of Q4. And so it does leave an average, and this is since I believe FY14, an average of 31% of all FY funds available to contractors for the fourth quarter sprint. So again, maybe a little bit higher than normal, but not astronomical. What you end up seeing now, is there an uptick in actions, contract actions in the fourth quarter? Yes, there is, but it typically ends up being bridge contracts. It ends up being sole source work. You're typically, and everybody has different experiences. Yes, fine. If you won new work in the fourth quarter, then that's great for you. But it's typically not new work at a new customer space for the fourth quarter. When it came to this last fiscal year, the top spenders in Q4 it was no surprises. It was DoD, HHS, of course, for this last year, VA.
Yeah, I can't imagine why.
Yeah, right. DHS and GSA. It's almost as if what happens in our world impacts federal spending. Imagine that.
Weird how that goes. Yeah, exactly.
Something that a lot of folks that do research don't account for is inflation. And so if you remove
Mhm.
inflation, it's pretty stagnant. Nothing's moving the needle too heavily up or down. Is the government getting better at procurement planning, you say? I don't know, did CIOSP4 go in yet? Where are we with that?
I cannot utter a word about that procurement. I cannot wait for next Tuesday to come. Yeah, and you know, on the CIOSP4 train, that is a good argument for me to have an agency like GSA be the specializer in procurement, right? Let's let everybody do what they're supposed to be good at. You know, I'm not calling GSA perfect in terms of procurement in any way, but when you look at the debacle that is CIOSP4 and the amount of money that it's going to cost small businesses that ultimately should have never been bidding this, the lack of transparency, to make a good bid, no bid decision for companies that just don't have enough money to go after every best in class BIC. Speaking of which, I saw that Stars 3 just got the designation as a BIC. So, you know, I couldn't agree with you more. I love that you approach it from a data standpoint, though, because to make informed decisions about procurement, to make good bid, no bid decisions, it's really important to have access to the data and to be able to sort it and analyze it and figure out where I should, as a small business, be putting my bid and proposal dollars, my capture efforts. So what's the most important thing to keep in mind when pursuing federal contract opportunities from sort of a business development angle? And then tell me about your platform a little bit and how the Pulse can help me do that more effectively.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you said that, because that's really the whole purpose of the Pulse, is for government contractor empowerment. And so to answer your question, what to keep in mind is, for people that are in the federal landscape, what I want them to keep in mind is that no organization will outright win you contracts, because government contractors win contracts. And this is a human to human industry, and it's all about those connections. And yes, there are tropes and there are tricks on what we can all do to get better, but it's all about your ability to find, vet, and down select those opportunities, just like you said, and then actually perform to maintain and grow your customer base. So the Pulse, what we like to do is provide that data. And so we have a lot of free and paid for resources, really depending on your needs, because we're very teach a man to fish. And so it's really up to you guys to pick what bait you're looking for. So in terms of how the Pulse can help, our membership platform certainly is a business intelligence tool that has a lot of different modules with data sets that we offer. We have free resources on our YouTube page and on our website with blog articles, where we do joint articles with subject matter experts in the field on different elements of contracting. You know, I would just say to use the data to better inform your decisions. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I am always surprised at the lack of data that people are willing to make decisions on, right? They're in their pipeline. And I don't know how things get in there when you don't have an understanding of that agency, you have no intimacy, client intimacy. You know, perhaps they saw it on SAM.gov or on, you know, GSA eBuy, and the ability to perform is only one of the factors. You said it most appropriately just now. I'm also always amazed at the number of people that don't believe that government contracting is relationship based, right? I am an XYZ socioeconomic, you know, they must purchase from so many, et cetera, et cetera. At the end of the day, every business relationship you have is going to be a relationship. And this is no different. Whether nobody would go to the commercial sector just hoping that someone was going to dial their phone number without creating a relationship and conveying what those core competencies are. So as we get back to some in-person events, the Government Procurement Conference is coming up in October. I hope I will see you there again. Tell tell me, just before we close, I want you to have sort of the last say, and it can be personal or it can be professional, but what's your sort of final thought that you want to leave everyone?
My final closing thought is to find data that is impartial, to beware sensational rhetoric for those that you see out there on LinkedIn or in the advertisements that you see. To think about your customers as people. It certainly is human to human. It certainly is a relationship building type workforce that we are in, an industry that we're in. And just beware of thinking that working with the government is going to be a get rich quick scheme. You know, people that say that are just trying to sell you something. I always ask when people
those phone calls that you get where they promise you $1 billion if you just get on a GSA schedule tomorrow, your phone's going to ring. That's not real.
No, it hurts me so much. And you know, it's funny. We'll get some firms that reach out to us that say, I'm just going to start moving from commercial to government. And our first question is, are you sure?
Yeah. Exactly. And some combination thereof, right? I mean, I think it's a really healthy thing. What did we learn from the pandemic? I think government contractors fared better than commercial firms. But there are times, you know, during not having a budget or government shutdown that's not the case. So some delicate balance, which is the same thing we would say about don't have only one customer or, you know, type of customer. So I can appreciate that. I want to thank you. I know your time is so valuable. You are so busy. I am going to look forward to baby pictures. I expect them in my email in the next 10 minutes. But I really thank you for taking the time to talk to all of us today. We will look forward to spending some time with you. And to everyone that joined us, thanks for joining us on The New Normal. Be sure to check out Lisa's blog post on government spending Q4. And we will see you next time. Thanks, everyone, and have a good day. Thanks, Lisa.